the Vice President of Economic Prosperity and also member of the KRA Steering Committee at Iskandar Regional Development Authority, or otherwise known as IRDA. I'm going to start off by telling you that I'm not from a developer. So I'm actually from the federal government of Malaysia. So what I'll be sharing with you here today is basically about Iskandar Malaysia. I'm sure many of you know about it. So I'd like to share some progress and developments on Iskandar Malaysia so that you can have an assessment, make an assessment of where you'd like to invest in Iskandar. Okay, just to start off, I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the landscape of Iskandar, as well as investment updates on Iskandar. What's happening in Iskandar, what are the investments that have come into Iskandar, and what is the progress that's taking place. Okay, so basically for those of you who are unfamiliar with Iskandar Malaysia, Iskandar Malaysia is actually a special economic zone or special economic corridor in Malaysia. Now, basically many years ago, way back in 2006 when Tun Abdullah Badawi was the Prime Minister of Malaysia, it was decided that they're going to break down Peninsular Malaysia and East Malaysia into specific economic corridors. So as a result of that, there were 5 corridors that were created, the largest of which and the most successful of which is actually the Iskandar Malaysia corridor. So Iskandar Malaysia, basically, as it stands, it's about 2,217 square kilometers. If you go up and down the north-south highway, right, as you're driving on the highway, you'll come across the sign which says Sedenak, which is an area in Johor. So once you pass the Sedenak area, or once you enter into the Sedenak area, you're technically inside the Iskandar Malaysia zone, all right, all the way right down to the south of the border in Singapore. Now, this is what it stands as of today. But an interesting development took place in early 2019, that is early this year. Basically, we had our board meeting. So the way Iskandar Malaysia or IRDA is structured is that, like I told you, we are from the federal government. So we have, I have 2 co-chairmen. One is the Prime Minister of Malaysia, and the other is the Chief Minister for the state of Johor, right? So at our board meeting, it was decided by the Prime Minister that the Iskandar Malaysia zone will be further expanded. Yeah? So it will be expanded to 4,749 kilometers, which is twice the size of what it is today. All right? So what this means is that it will be covering all the way further up north, up into the southern part of Kluang area in Johor. Yeah. So what does this immediately mean? What it means is that the investment enablers that are there for the Iskandar Malaysia zone today would be further extended into these areas in Johor. Yeah? So it's actually good news. What it means is that there is a bigger land area to play around with, which also means that there are bigger or other areas of choices that you have. So basically, the zone itself is broken down into a few sectors or a few areas which we have come up with and known as flagship zones. So these are A, B, C, D, and E. So every one of these flagship zones have been earmarked for catalyst projects, yeah, or specific what we call key sector areas, right? So these are over here. In the Central Business District is actually JB City Center, which is in flagship A, and those activities that are listed down there are not exhaustive as such, which means that it doesn't mean that it's only limited to these activities, but these are the ones that we feel would fit into these areas, considering that the active development is taking place there. Now, the other thing to also take note is that under the new expanded territory, the area of Pengerang will also fall under the Iskandar Malaysia zone. Yeah, so which actually in the past didn't happen lah. Meaning Iskandar Malaysia, Pengerang was cut out of it. But now under the new realignment, Pengerang will also fall into that area. Yeah. So the greater part of Iskandar Malaysia, like I mentioned, so these are the new areas. So we talk about which are the areas. There's this area in Kluang, Layang-Layang, Rengam, Ulu Benut, all this is covered. In Pontian, yeah, it will be Air Masin, Pangkalan Raja, Perimeter Jun, Pontian, Api-Api, Air Baloi, Benut, and Sungai Pingan. And Kota Tinggi, you have Johor Lama, Pengerang, like I said earlier. And the prominent economic sector there is oil and gas, tourism, and bio-agriculture. Yeah. Now, coming back to what I said earlier, basically, I'm not from a developer. Yeah, I'm from the government, and the way we are structured is, as I mentioned, we have two co-chairmans. And IRDA's role, IRDA is actually, we exist by way of an act of parliament. And our primary role is three things. One is to plan the development in the Iskandar area. Two is to promote it in the sense that, promote it towards foreign direct investors that come in. And also to facilitate. Facilitate is basically to assist with the related enablers. So we have a few different enablers, incentives for investors that are coming into Iskandar. So those of you who are looking at setting up maybe an SME business or whatever in Iskandar, you can speak to me. We have specific enablers that may be of interest to you. Beyond that, we also, for those of you who are familiar with the Max card, yeah, for the immigration, that is something that is facilitated by IRDA. In fact, we have an immigration counter at our office that actually processes that Max card. Yeah. So basically, let's talk a little bit about developing Iskandar Malaysia and what's going on at the moment. So basically, the Iskandar Malaysia concept was mooted in 2006. Now we're 13 years down the road. And we were developed, and our guide was basically what is something known as the Comprehensive Development Plan. So the Comprehensive Development Plan laid out all the key focus areas as well as the sector industries where we would be drawing in investments. Now, this Comprehensive Development Plan is currently at its second phase, and we are working on the third phase, which is CDP3, which will cover the expanded areas in the Iskandar zone that I spoke about earlier. So that is on the supply side. And on the demand side, basically a lot of the development, particularly real estate development, is largely driven by local developers. And also, of course, some of the key government-linked developers, which is UAM and Johor Corporation, and so on. And Medini is, of course, one of the key townships areas. Catalysts and drivers of the newer investments that have come in. We know very well about JPO. For those of you who go and do your shopping over there, IKEA has come up. Hershey, as you know, is a big chocolate factory. The largest plant outside the United States actually sits in Iskandar, Malaysia. So for Hershey, this is their biggest plant outside of the US. Yeah? And there are many more interesting developments that are coming along, which I will run through as we progress. So a little bit about the Comprehensive Development Plan. The whole idea of the plan centers around three areas: wealth generation by way of investment attraction, resource optimization and low carbon, and also wealth sharing and inclusiveness. So whatever investments that come in, we want to ensure that it has a spillover effect to the local community and the local population that resides in Iskandar. Talking about population, right? See, what's very interesting is that we know very well that in Johor, right now our labor force is somewhere to the tune of about 1.4 million people. We also know that the largest or the busiest border crossing in the world is actually the Singapore-Malaysia border. Okay, so for those of you who may not be aware, by way of volume, we have about 400,000 people can cross in and out every single day. All right. And when we talk about population movement into Iskandar, Malaysia, latest data shows that over the course of the last 3 years, the highest outflow of professional, skilled labor from the greater Kuala Lumpur and Klang Valley area is actually into Iskandar and Johor. It used to be Penang many years ago, where people were actually, those professional workers who were looking at leaving Kuala Lumpur, Penang was their first choice destination. But today it's Iskandar Malaysia and Johor. Well, why is this happening? I think it's because, number one, of the type of investments that have come into Iskandar. Yeah, we have new types of investments that have come in that have actually attracted professional workers to move from Kuala Lumpur into Iskandar. Secondly, Kuala Lumpur is actually a very matured location, yeah, which means that a lot of the cost is also a lot higher. Cost of living is a lot higher in Kuala Lumpur. I myself am from Kuala Lumpur. I've been living in Iskandar for the last 5 years. And I see a lot of progress going on year to year. Now let's look a little bit about what is the current situation of the landscape or investment update. Now, basically, if you look at it, over the course of time, up until June 2019, a total of 302 billion ringgit has been attracted into Iskandar Malaysia. Now, 61% of this is domestic investment, and 39% of which are foreign. Manufacturing still continues to be the leading source. Now, if you look at the left over here, this is what we call the promoted sector, and on the right is the other sectors, right? So when you look at the promoted sector, manufacturing still stands out on top, followed by logistics, tourism, healthcare, education, financial and business services, and creative. 57% of the total investment has actually already been realized, which means this is money that has already been spent by the investors to set up base in Iskandar, right? Over the course of the last 5 years, CAGR rate has been at 9.7%, which is very, very healthy, right? Now, as I mentioned, in the promoted sector, the top of the line is still manufacturing. So we're still very much a manufacturing-driven destination. Foreign investments into Iskandar, up until, I believe, 2016, Singapore was number one, the number one foreign direct investor. But over the course of time, and over the years, China has now almost twice as much investments as Singapore. But it still continues to grow. And of course, the growth is primarily in the SME sector. So we're seeing a lot of SME businesses actually move or expand their business further in Iskandar Malaysia and Johor over Singapore. Probably for obvious reasons, because the cost of doing business has also gone up over here. Now, which are the promoted economic sectors, so to speak? The promoted economic sectors are basically in services. We've got financial, logistics, education, tourism, creative, and healthcare. And the manufacturing side, electrical and electronics, which is growing, petrol, chem and oil and gas, food and agro processing, and of course the emerging technologies, which include green technology and biotechnology. Now all of these are actually centered around the halal economy. I would like to also point out, for those of you who may have already seen this little thing up here, where property is actually not a promoted sector in Iskandar Malaysia. What this means is that IRDA doesn't actively promote it, but the developments have been very organic. To us, it's an indication of confidence. So confidence by the developers that the Iskandar region is growing, which only means that the demand for housing will grow with the course of time. Yeah. A little bit about the ecosystem. Now, up until now, we have created almost about 780,000 jobs in Iskandar. And we are currently at what is known as the third phase of development. Now, if you look at Iskandar, I told you the story started in 2006. Way back then, we were busy coming up with blueprints and whatnot. During the 2011 and 2015 phase, a lot of infrastructure development took place. A lot of connectivity was done. A lot of highways were built to connect the Johor area. From moving forward from 2016 to 2025, we're looking at moving up to the next phase, which means really about bringing in the talent, bringing in the workforce, growing the ecosystem as a whole. We have numerous enablers in place for SMEs, and what's very interesting, if you look at all of this, is the SME growth income. Yeah, so SMEs in Iskandar Malaysia actually are growing better than the national average. Yeah, and these are data that have actually been verified by the ministry and audited by our auditors. Yeah, and you look at the profitability level is also higher than the national average. So which means that as much as what you may be hearing, something is actually going right. We also have a smart city vision for Iskandar Malaysia, and it also centers around the three broad areas, which is the economy, the environment, and also the social aspects of development in Iskandar. Yeah, so there's a lot of efforts being put in place. In fact, we are the first economic region to set up our own Iskandar Malaysia Urban Observatory. Yeah, so the Urban Observatory is a big project that is really looking towards automating. It's looking at coming up with smart solutions, smart applications for those developments that are taking place in Iskandar. And of course, we have the low carbon pledge and low carbon blueprint, which is also something that we have come up with for every one of those 5 areas, or those 5 what we know as town councils, which are within the Iskandar Malaysia zone. Yeah, so the development is not in isolation or is not at the expense of the environment. Now, let's get to something which is quite interesting. Let's talk about connectivity a little bit. Okay. Now, one of the things that I mentioned earlier was in terms of connectivity, we had already completed 3 of the major ones, which is, the Eastern Dispersal Link, or what is known as the EDL, and the Coastal Highway, which was actually a game changer at the time. So Coastal Highway is the highway that connects you as you come out from the second link, and as you drive straight out, you'll be reaching Ledang Heights, and then you go into Bukit Indah, Iskandar Puteri, Bukit Indah, and all those areas, right up to the Johor Bahru Central Business District. And the Eastern Dispersal Ring, on the other hand, connects you right up from the North-South Highway into Central Johor Bahru, right into Causeway. And the Senai Desaru Highway, which has also been completed. So the Senai Desaru Highway. So Desaru is again another one of those areas which has got a lot of tourism investments. A number of hotels have actually opened up there. We'll go into that in a while. And now under this new realignment of the Iskandar zone, Desaru also falls in under the Iskandar region. Now, some of the key links, we have the RTS, the high-speed railway, as you know, has been postponed. The RTS is definitely happening. The question is, I believe we will be having an announcement from the Minister of Transport by end of the month as to the specifics. The expected time of completion is 2024. And then we have the ETS by 2022, and the BRT, which is known as the Bus Rapid Transit, is a huge project that has already been approved by the federal government to improve connectivity within the Iskandar area. So this spans all the way from Medini right up to the other end of Iskandar, which is up to Pasir Gudang area. Yeah. So if you are interested in more of the details, you're most welcome to go to our site, or you can always come and approach us in our office. Of course, the development also includes the entire ecosystem development. We have 3 youth hubs that are being planned. There is a regional youth hub, local youth hub, and the neighborhood youth hub. And of course, as I mentioned, it also comes, everything centers around the halal ecosystem. Yeah. So the halal economy, if you really look at it, is very interesting because the demand for halal goods and services extends beyond just the local borders of Malaysia. I mean, there's a huge international market for halal, and Iskandar Malaysia has got a lot of plug-and-play solutions, which means we have a lot of integrated investment. We have a lot of integrated industrial parks that are halal friendly, which means that if you want to set up a business and you're looking at exporting to halal countries, you have a ready-made solution over there. Okay, let's go into a little bit more of the specific areas or the specific sectors that I spoke about earlier. So financial and business services is a growing sector for us. Okay, what we call global business solutions or GBS. This is very interesting. You see, some years ago in 2000, I believe it was in 2017, we had a company called Aegis. Aegis is an American multinational, and they're very well established in Kuala Lumpur. So they were looking at expanding outside of Kuala Lumpur, and they had two choices to make, whether to come and set up base in Iskandar or to actually move to Penang. They took a leap and they decided to set up in Iskandar because if you look at their business, they are basically a call center, an outsourcing call center, right? Most of their clients are in Singapore and Hong Kong. And of course, they've got a sizable client base in Malaysia as well. So the reason why they were thinking twice about setting up in Iskandar is because they were wondering where they're going to get the talent. It's very difficult, yeah? But much to everybody's surprise, they thought they will start off with 400 people and grow progressively. Today, not only 2 years later, they have about 1,300 people working for them. And these 1,300 people are actually living around that area in the Medini zone. Yeah, and some of them, of course, extend outward from there. And this is a growing trade. We have a number of key investors who are actually into gamification from Japan that have actually come into Iskandar. Logistics continues to grow. What has changed over the years, or what are some of the key investments that have come in? BMW motor cars have moved or have their regional parts hub now in Iskandar, Malaysia, and so does Volkswagen. Yeah, and we have indications that another key big player is going to also come into the fore. And of course, we have the Johor port, the Tanjung Langsat port, and the port of Tanjung Pelepas. Manufacturing, as I said, continues to grow. The key players include the ones that are listed over here, out of which I mentioned about Hershey. And, we have another big one, cosmetic company that is coming in known as Amore Pacific, which is a key Korean investor. Tourism is also on the growth. Occupancy rates or numbers in hotels have gone up. The one thing that is not there in Iskandar at the moment is actually a key 5-star hotel. If you go to JB, the best you come across is either Amari or you have a DoubleTree Hilton. But there is strong demand for two things. Demand for a big 5-star hotel. There's also demand for what we call MICE, yeah, or convention centers. We don't have enough of those. But what's interesting is these tourism numbers or the visitor numbers have been going up year on year. Yeah, so which means that the tourism product is actually selling. People are coming for more ecotourism. The visits to Legoland has also increased. Primarily, people also come to shop. Yeah, so in the past, people used to only come to refuel and then go into Singapore. Yeah, but this trend has been changing over the years. Healthcare, also another growing industry. We have a total of 3,122 beds at present. The future number of beds is projected at about 6,200, which is almost twice. So some of the key players include Regency, Gleneagles, and Econ Medical Center, which is a healthcare provider, and of course the homegrown KPJ, yeah, or Johor Specialist Hospital. Thomson Medical and Columbia Asia are also key players. Education, as you know, we have EduCity, and the EduCity, or which is located in the Medini area, houses a few key foreign universities, which is we have Southampton University from the UK, and talking about private schools, we have Marlborough College, and as we know, as it stands right now, we have at least about 20 buses that go in and out every single day. Yes, which means these kids are actually there. Creative, we have Iskandar Malaysia Studios. Now, a lot of hype has been going around about this Pinewood exiting Iskandar Malaysia. But let me assure you, with Pinewood's exit from, it's actually a strategy for the business. So Iskandar Malaysia Studios has actually seen an increase in revenues over the years. Right, so the exit of Pinewood is merely just a dropping of the brand name of Pinewood, but revenue-wise and in terms of the bookings that they have, far exceeds capacity for the next 2 to 3 years. So which means the studios itself is fully booked for production for the next 2 to 3 years. So when we talk about creative productions. The good thing is that it has a lot of spillover effects. People come, they rent cars, they occupy hotels, and this is very evident by seeing those occupancy numbers rise. And these are, of course, the key township property developments. I think some of them are actually over here today, so you can actually get more information. Industrial parks, we have a total of 86 industrial parks, 16 of which are gated and guarded. The growing industrial park, actually AME, which is one of the key developers. If you see, they're actually going to be listed in the main board soon. Some of the other interesting or exciting projects, Sunway Iskandar is a growing development. They are coming up with something known as the Big Box Village, which is their retail. And Sunway Iskandar has also grown quite a fair bit over the course of time, they've got a school over there. They've also got an extreme park and whatnot. Something you might want to explore since they're over here. And as I mentioned, there's also the Sedenak Data Center, which is another huge project which is taking place. So the data center is going to be a key data center for some of the key global players, one of which includes Microsoft. So we should be setting up the data center in Iskandar, in Sedenak. And of course, the other projects that I spoke of earlier. So I've been told that my time is coming up. So in conclusion, basically, the Iskandar project is centered around 3 things. One is for you to invest, work, live, and play. And with that in mind, actually what has been going on over the years is we've seen progressive growth. So for those of you who actually go into Johor or have been into Johor over the years, you'll realize that a lot of things have changed. Over the course of time, a lot of connectivity has improved. Over the course of time, population has grown, and indications, judging from what we know in terms of future investments that are coming in. Of course, I can't disclose everything to you, but knowing what I know in terms of future investments that are coming in, it does look promising. It does look like the growth of the population is going to increase over the course of time. As it stands right now, the population of Iskandar Malaysia is about 1.98 million, and we project this population to grow to at least 3 million by 2025. Yeah. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Prakash. Will you be taking any questions?
2 at most.
Okay. Are there any questions about Iskandar? Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of safety and security, well, it has definitely got safer over the years. Okay. In fact, from the kind of queries that we usually get, right, from the investors and the investment community, many years ago, one of the top concerns was actually, the top 3 was actually safety was number 1, right? Then connectivity and whatever not came in line. Today, the first question is actually more about human capital and talent, okay? Because safety is no longer in the top 10 of the list of concerns that they have, right? In fact, for me personally, having been someone who moved from KL to JB, and having been lived in JB over the last 5 years, in all honesty, I feel safer in JB than I do in Kuala Lumpur, and this is a fact. Yeah, where I live in KL, I live in Montclair in KL, or I used to live there, and I used to work downtown in Kuala Lumpur. And I can tell you, a lot of petty thefts take place. Right? Petty theft takes place almost everywhere, but it's very rampant, even more rampant in cities like Kuala Lumpur than it is in Johor Bahru. So I think a lot of it comes down to perception. I'm not saying that it's 100% safe, but definitely safer than what it used to be over the years. I also have a lot of extended family in Singapore, some of whom have not even visited. But interesting thing is that after I moved to Johor Bahru, and some of them came and visited JB after more than 10 years, they have not even stepped foot into Johor Bahru. But they'll come to Kuala Lumpur, to come and visit. So it's interesting when I had conversations with them, right? And they were like, hey, I didn't know JB was like this. I didn't know you guys have all these malls here now. I didn't know that it's the way it is. I said, well, this is how it is now. So it's right next door. It's not too far away. It's definitely nearer than Kuala Lumpur. When you get the opportunity, go and visit, go and see for yourself, so that you get to feel what it's like over there. And don't be too afraid. Yeah, just just try to let go a little bit, go and explore. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Sorry, sir. Max has been restored. For a while, it was suspended. But it has now been restored. This is for those who are invested in Iskandar. So if you're going in and out, you don't have to get your passport stamped all the time. There's a fast track with the Max card. You're exempt from being. You don't have to get a stamp on your passport. It's faster. Yeah, but that's of course there's thresholds lah. So it depends on as long as you fall into that criteria, you will. Great. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Actually, that gentleman raised his hand before.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So are there plans to improve the connectivity? I mean, there were talks about a third bridge. Any comment on that?
Well, as it stands right now, the third bridge is not a priority at the moment. Yeah, but we're looking at other alternative solutions. I think the key focus at the moment is actually to reduce or to attempt to reduce the congestion on both sides of the crossing. Yeah, a lot of things are being explored. In fact, we're also looking at technology to see how best we can look at new solutions. Like I said. A lot of people don't realize that this is actually the busiest border crossing in the world. It's busier than even the US-Mexico border. Yeah? So volume is high. So we can't look at traditional solutions. And whenever you talk about border crossing, it's a two-way street. It's not just the Malaysian government, it's also the confidence of the Singapore government in terms of safety and security. When you talk about crossing borders, no country will take a risk. Yeah. But what's there for us to explore is new technology and solutions. We've come a long way. Technology has come a long way. Facial recognition is one of them now. So we need to explore to see what are the solutions that we can come up with. So we can have as many connectivities as we like. We can have as many bridges, but at the end of the day, if you don't look at technology, you don't look at new solutions, it'll never solve the problem. Yeah. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.